You know, two of the most frequent complaints about the state of the U.S. education system, they came together today in protest over what's known as Common Core. First complaint that today's public schools do too little to prep kids for college, especially when it comes to independent thinking and problem solving. The other complaint, that teachers and schools these days only teach to the test. That is, what students really learn is how to score well on standardized tests aimed at showing how effective or ineffective education programs really are. In response, Education Department, in coordination with state governors and state education departments, came up with Common Core. It's a set of standards that educators and students must meet when it comes to both math and English, and standardized tests to make sure that states, districts, teachers, they get the job done and done well. But not everybody's happy with Common Core. It's prompted a series of protests today and other web-driven protests with parents actually keeping their kids home from school. Well, parents, they're confused and pretty well split on the subject. 45% in a recent New York poll think the program's going to help kids get ready for college. 49% say they won't. There's also a split when parents are asked if Common Core standards are too tough or not tough enough or just right. Now, one thing we do know, that the nation's education secretary himself is, understands some of the complaints that are coming up with the parents. While speaking to school superintendents on Friday, Secretary Arne Duncan said some of the pushback to Common Core is coming from suburban white moms who, Duncan says, look at the test scores and all of a sudden their child isn't as brilliant as they thought they were and their school isn't quite as good as they thought, and that is pretty scary, end quote. Now, Duncan, he later apologized, but he continued his argument saying, do we want more from our kids or do we want less? Do we want higher standards or not? Well, to help us sort through this, we are bringing in our next guest, Ronald Ross. He, the superintendent of schools in the Greenburgh Central School District in Westchester County, and you've had an interesting background. You've been at schools of all different kind of makeups here. I remember you've been in the big cities here, and you've also been in some of the suburban enclaves. To that point, with such a divided public, you've seen different attempts come and go. Was this Common Core premise a good one? And in practice, has it carried out what the promise was?
It would be good for some places. I would say for Mississippi, West Virginia to start, who have poor school systems, it would be very good. Louisiana. But here, just in Westchester County, to say Common Core, for most of us, that would be a step down. It's a false premise to start with, that this is raising standards, and to say people are for it and against it. They're for and against it for the same reason, ignorance. You couldn't find 10% of the entire country who know what the Common Core is, or they could write a real definition of what it is. They are against it because of poor information. Common Core has nothing to do with, we're talking about something that E.D. Hirsch out of University of Virginia years ago talking about there were 5,000 things that kids needed to learn. Some of the National Governors Association and Achieve picked up on that and ran with it. We need national standards. They have been putting these false canards up for years. Public education is failing. I'm old enough to have sat under a desk because the Russians, the Soviet Union, was going to blow it up. The last time I looked, we got to the moon. The last time I looked, the Soviet Union no longer exists. And this is for a failing school system in America.
Well, you know the basic argument, which is, hey, we can't have schools, some that are doing social promotion, some down in Mississippi that have different expectations for the kids than in New York. We need to have a universal, basic report card. So everybody's working off the same guide so we know how everybody's doing. Let's get the facts up on the table. If you don't have that, the argument follows, and you let every state come up with their own plan, Mississippi's program could be a heck of a lot different than New York's, and that might not be a good thing.
We will never have one, nor, see, this whole thing about Common Core takes us away from things we really need to talk about. The corporate and billionaires take over of public education. The only people who are going to feed off of the Common Core are the large companies who are doing the new textbooks, the testing, and all of the things that go along with it. This has nothing to do with it. Oh, we're behind for college ready. Of course, if you look at the community colleges and other places. Well, those are the kids who don't get into the elite schools.
We are falling behind China, though, right? I mean, you look at the numbers of engineers we're producing here.
It's just coming up. Or they?
Let me just say very clearly why people keep bringing that up. I love it. Because about a year and a half ago, who would be their Secretary of Education, their leader, said that if we continue along the road we are going, China will be a place of test takers. I'm paraphrasing, but he said we will never have Bill Gates or other people like that coming up because they didn't teach creativity. The very places that we try to say to emulate, they want to find some ways to get away from taking tests. They don't do that. Oh, we're behind Finland. Finland tests from what we call first grade to the 12th grade 3 times. We try to test the 3rd grader that time. Oh, we need to come up with one set of standards. Let me tell you how that's going to work out. You know where we started that? It was called No Child with or Behind. I mean, no child without one. But my point being, what did they tell us? January the 1st, 2014, every child will be reading that grade level. How's that one working out, Mr. Bush?
Well, then the natural question comes, what do we do? What should we do better? Are we really comfortable giving districts that keep getting their budgets cut discretion to figure out how to do it on their own? Or do we have a core standards that schools, whether they're from the Deep South, out west, Midwest, Northeast, they basically follow the same core curriculum?
I don't have any problem with standards. I would tell the people who are against it. We've always had standards. I go back to the 50s, we needed to raise the standards. The National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, the National Council of Teachers of English. We've always had standards. That's not the problem. The problem is poverty and the fact that children enter school at different rates with different vocabularies, and we don't want to talk about that. The only good thing coming out of the Common Core, there are people on the far right, the Tea Party, who are against that, and there are liberal people in the center and people on the left. If you could ever get them to stop seeing each other as the enemy, we might look at the fact that they are trying to take away local school board decision making. They are trying to get one size fits all. They are trying to take away the creativity, the things that this does for people. The soccer moms came out. Washington is so desperate that he played the race card, basically. The white suburban moms are upset. You don't think inner city black moms have been upset for decades because of poor health, poor schools, poor everything? This is a canard that has nothing to do with real education.
Let me ask from your perspective. I mean, you've seen kids coming into classes here, different campuses for a while. Do you see a difference in the level of the college student, let's say now, than maybe 10, 15 years ago?
I don't know that I necessarily...
I know you're only 21, so you were 6 when you started teaching.
It's hard for me to understand that, but no, I don't know that I necessarily see a huge difference in the last 10 or 15 years. But as a parent, I could say hallelujah to everything that Ron just said, because as a parent, this Common Core has been thrust upon us
in such studying for tests all, every night they got free tests.
As somebody, I mean, I was in the dean's office, so we have a school of education. I knew this was coming. I'm not I'm not in education. I didn't understand what it meant. As a parent, it's thrust upon you. You have no idea what it means for your kids. And so there is so much misunderstanding out there about what it means. The kids are being tested repeatedly, and you have no input into what's going on. And I have to say, I have several sisters. I have 5 sisters, and 3 of them are teachers, and they are all struggling to try to get caught up in terms of what they're supposed to be teaching now. And so even the teachers haven't been prepared, let alone the 2nd graders. So as a parent, it's been incredible. I can understand. I have friends who want to opt out of it if possible, and I know you do as well. So, my life as a professor has been different
the
than my
lunatics
life
for
as a
me
parent.
that kept the kids home today, though, Dominic, there's different complaints about it. There's complaints that I hear every day that Jeannie does from other parents who are just like, my God, my X-year-old is spending how many hours every night just getting ready for the next test. But then there's other people who are opposed to this, not so much because of curriculum. They want the government out completely. They want to have discretionary levels at all the states. And I'm not so sure we'd be too crazy about some of the curriculums that would be going on. It's an interesting mix who's for this and who's against it.
Very much so. I'm just frankly listening to the debate. I'm just glad that my kids are out of school, because I'm a bit confused about this entire issue. I recall, watching the kids get ready for the testing and so on. And it does reach a point of when does it stop, and are you really learning anything, or are we just testing to the exam? So I defer to the experts in education.
Nice pass there, Don. It's noble, the intent, Andrew, right? It's just hard, the implementation.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so many factors at play here too that go outside the classroom.
I don't think the intent is so noble. There are a lot of publishing companies making a lot of money right now. Some that I work with, that I know, and Ron knows better than I do, but I'm not so sure it's...
Rich, let me say one thing that will be totally politically incorrect. We want to say that we're trying to get every kid college ready, and now the idiots in Washington are saying, you know, let's test third grade. I was a high school principal and a high school teacher for 20-some years in New York City. I don't know of half of the 9th graders who were college ready. So even bring up to say we're testing a 3rd grader to see if they're college ready.
But isn't the goal to make sure the 12th graders are college ready?
Those who need to go to college, yes. And that's why I want to say what's so politically correct. We will never have, just like in 2014, all of our kids won't be reading at grade level. In 3014, every kid will not be college ready, nor should they have to go to college.
But in fairness, I recall throughout the year listening to the other argument of, you know, Johnny gets to the 9th grade, and then educators find out that Johnny can't read at all.
We knew that already.
Well, we're going to keep this debate going to the break. When we come back, we're going to go from the academic to some of the social stuff here, and that is policing the web. It's a new reality every parent is dealing with on this one. But how hard should some of the penalty be when kids do bad stuff online? Should kids get a do-over, a delete button when it comes to social media? Not just kids, by the way. And what about naughty pictures sent out there? What happens then here? Legislation is talking about dealing with that as well. We'll get into that after this.